Hi, welcome to another Google Hangout on the Living Income Guaranteed. Today we are joined once again by the Portugal team of the Basic Income Proposal. We have Joana and Waldir.
Yes.
Okay, and so thanks guys for your time for being here.
Hi.
Hello everyone.
So today we will be having an interesting discussion on their proposal, which is basic income and the living income guaranteed. Differences, similarities, what is our aim, and so guys, let's begin. Let's go to the questions.
Good. You want to go ahead, Waldir?
Sorry, okay, I was getting a feedback loop somewhere. Sorry. One thing I would like to point out, sorry if I interrupted, we in Portugal, we are part of the European initiative right now. Actually, the group in Portugal is quite a recent one because it was formed precisely because of the movement that's been forming throughout this year because of the proposal, the European proposal, the initiative for basic income. So it's the basic income that we are talking about here in Portugal is exactly the same. So just to clarify that point.
Okay, cool.
So one thing that I think it's really important to discuss here and for everyone who's watching us is to first look at the similarities and what exactly we want to show people that there's a solution out there or out here for us, not only as Europeans but to the whole world, that life doesn't need to be a struggle, that we can afford to live well in the current planet with the resources we have, with them, but just with a different mindset. And that's the whole idea about having solutions such as the basic income that we have in Europe, and also like the living income guarantee that is proposed here over the web, and all the other solutions that already exist out there, because it's just not new. It's just something that has been existing so far, but never with a real political implementation. And I think when we go after to look at how we can implement this solution, that's where we can look at the differences and see what's the best on each solution, I think.
Yeah, precisely. Waldir, do you have any questions? What we are going to be discussing here is the proposal of the basic income and the living income. So if you guys have questions on it, go ahead.
Exactly. I was going to maybe suggest that we should start by discussing exactly what these proposals are and what does it mean. Why do they have these different names? What components are different and which ones are the same? So from what I could see, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the difference between the basic income, which, well, the full name is Unconditional Basic Income, it's often abbreviated as basic income, as we do here in Portugal. So the key lies there in the unconditional. And when I read about the living income guarantee proposal, what I noticed was the only difference. Actually, it's very, very similar. It's a remarkably similar idea, but the only difference was in the unconditionality, which of course it's also the main question that people ask when we tell them about the unconditional basic income, which is, why give it to everyone? Why give it to rich people who don't need it? So I think we should address this. I think this is the only difference, and please correct me if I'm wrong. And if it is, so let's just discuss a bit why these different approaches have been taken.
Yeah, what we have done is from the moment that we researched basic income from 2008 from pilot projects such as the Namibian one, we realized that it was given to people that really required it. So yes, great to give to people that in that moment didn't have the necessary money to live. But if we look at the current implementation or the proposal of the basic income as unconditional, we're saying, well, this money that is going to be funding a living income or a basic income should be given to the people they make. Like, for example, it wouldn't be something as substantially making a difference in their lives because they're already living well. And also what we propose as well is that that money then is of course then given to the people that genuinely need it, and that's also making the profit being distributed in a way that is economic and making it financially able and feasible within a nation. This also comes with the perspective that another one of our proposals is that the living income guarantee becomes like what is currently called as the basic or the minimum wage, which means it is living, because we don't want people to live just with the bare minimum. We're saying living because it will be the basic, the most viable type of or rate of or price of wage that will enable to live, to give you a life in dignity and with all the necessary means to live, which means you as an individual have the option to remain with a living income, or for example decide to work and earn double the living income, which is what we also are proposing. Because one of the usual questions is why should we give money to people? They will stop working, and then comes this idea of there's no motivation for the workers. So we're saying yes, there will be, because they will be earning double the living income. So I don't know if you read about that proposal as well.
Yes, I read about that. My only question is, it's kind of two battles, I suppose, to have this system of essentially, I assume I can call it a social security system, but an actual security one instead of the one that we currently have.
Exactly.
But besides that, we need to also, if we want to implement the living income guaranteed without this poverty trap effect, we need to make the minimum income double the amount of the living income guarantee. So that's another battle, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. That's another way of placing it. Go ahead.
Okay. My understanding of this is, of course, when I read about the living income guarantee being conditional, I had the exact same objection that I have to all the other systems that are conditional. Of course, I didn't have this knowledge, but after reading about basic income, it made sense, which is basically the poverty trap effect. So you don't, if you already are able to live with the living income, then why would you work, and why would you don't have the incentive, the financial incentive to work? Which, by the way, I don't believe this at all. I believe that humans have the inherent need to be productive to each other, and they would be bored anyway. But that belief aside, even if you admit that people would have this, would only work because of their financial incentives, only after reading about this double, this minimum income being double the living income guaranteed, I understood that only in that case, yeah, it would. Well, it doesn't need to be double. It could be any substantial amount higher, just to make it worthwhile to not just lay around and do nothing. But
exactly.
But what I see from the living income guarantee side is that this is more of a pragmatic choice. So it's, as you said, it's wasteful to be giving this, given amount. If we take the amount of money that we can distribute and we distribute it for everyone, then everybody will be getting a little bit less. And if we only distribute it for those who really need it, then they can get a little bit more. So the system would be more financially sustainable if we do it that way, which makes sense. And I agree that it negates the poverty trap argument. But then I think that there are also other arguments that you could justify unconditionality, and this is something that I think would be interesting for us to discuss, or at least for us to be aware of. So, for example, in terms of the simplicity of the system, because you don't have to perform the means tests, you don't have to have any system to make sure that only those who aren't getting income from other sources do get the living income guarantee. It's simple in both the receiver end, meaning that you would such a system would be harder to gain in the receiving end and harder to gain in the giving, let's say, and in the sense that there would be less opportunity for corruption in the way the system is implemented. So if it's unconditional, it could be something automatic, and of course it could be automatic as well, programmed, but it's a little bit more complex program, maybe not too much complex, but it gives a little bit of opportunity for gaming the system if you have the right access. Also, I think one of the interesting points about unconditionality is the way that it doesn't label you as unable to sustain yourself or sustain your family. So the mere fact that you are giving someone an aid, this living income guarantee, let's not call it aid, but if you are giving it to some people but not to others, you are creating a divide in society. And this is more of a psychological effect, but I think it might have big effects in society. In for example, the way people look at each other, the way they look at themselves, and for example their confidence and desire to, or willingness to take risks and create their own business, for example. So this is another point that I think it's not negated if you see the financial side of making it conditional. The advantage of being unconditional is still there in these cases, and there are others, but I was just going to throw this idea for discussion.
Yeah, for sure. The aspect of how people would divide themselves and the stigma that exists currently to obtaining welfare or not shouldn't be there, because this wouldn't be like, hey, please help me, government, because I'm unemployed. It would be, I am reclaiming my right, my access to my living right as a human being. We are all entitled to the use of our resources as a human right, and this is what the living income guarantee is also founded upon. So it doesn't have anything to do with the welfare or the pension, or I'm unemployed, or I don't want to work. It shouldn't be something that is even required for you to let the people know. It's just you getting, for example, in this means test and clearly stating, I am unemployed, I am employed. And we have many ways to also prove this. For example, currently with the age of technology, communications, and all of this, there are very simple ways to prove that you're working or not. And that is essentially what we would be requiring as a means test, because everything else really is just a matter of saying, I am coming here to get my access to my living right as a human being. So it doesn't have anything to do with, trying to divide society. That's not our point at all. And if there's any psychological situation going on, we can work it out and explain precisely and educate ourselves as human beings that we haven't been entitled to this access because we have allowed it, because we haven't placed a system that integrates the funding of fundamental human rights as part of the economy, which is what living income guarantee really proposes. And that's why, you can essentially say that living income is the essential mechanism, the way to make a basic income viable and feasible in an economy, and also to make it, something that is well planned, that is not subject to these comparisons with welfare systems, because it is certainly not that. And also in terms of giving money to the people that already have, it's simply like a smart decision, really. Do not squander money with those that already have a lot. There wouldn't be really like a complication in that. The technology is existent. It can be a very easy process to be made to just get your living income, and that's what we foresee. I mean, using the technology, all of the availability of communications and everything to ensure that, yes, if you have a bank account, for example, you get your living income, that's it. So it shouldn't be more complicated than that. Joanna, would you like to say something about this?
Yes, I was actually thinking about that potential mechanism. If we're thinking about solutions, so let's say I am employed and then I decide to or I lose my job, and the system knows that you're not going to get your paycheck at the end of the month because that's integrated in the system, in the society. So, and I think the good way of that will be, okay, it recognizes that that company is no longer attached to your bank account anymore. So automatically there will be that living income or basic income that would go into that and will fill the gap of not my full amount that I was earning while working, but a living wage that allows me to live until I get a new position, etc. So I could see that, because one of the things, and that I was also asked about that unconditionality, was that usually we associate these welfare systems as something very complicated and bureaucratic. It's always you have to go there to, yeah, you have to prove that, look, I'm employed, I need your help, please. And that's very bad. And sometimes there's even the, and that's maybe one of the reasons why people actually cheat the system. They actually say that they're not employed when they are doing some tasks there and there, but they need that. So I agree that from an educational perspective, it has to be very well promoted wherever the solution is going to be moving forward, like let's say in European Union, is that sometimes it happens that people don't even know that the states provide it. It's not a public thing. People don't speak about those things every often because money is still an issue that is still almost a taboo in society. No one speaks about where does money come from, and etc. And then basically, if we look at that point of okay, you're not working, but you're gonna have your money anyways, and that could avoid those even the fear of changing a job, for example. And I think that was also one of the points that when I heard about the unconditionality of it, I thought, well, that's great, because sometimes you want to move to another job and you don't want to face the risk of losing everything. So I think when we discuss about either the conditionality or unconditionality of it, we just have to make sure that it's there and it's public and people know about it, and there's not the case of someone just missing the opportunity. And like, let's say immigrants, they are in a new society, no one tells them that they actually have the right to receive a basic or a living income. So wherever the solution goes forward, communication, I believe it's key.
And also another aspect, I mean, if we look at the usual objections to a basic income is, oh, it is unconditional. How are we going to use all people's taxes to fund this if people don't want to work, and why should I work for them, and so forth. So actually making it, let's understand the word unconditional not as, oh, you are not granted to live. No, everyone will have money to live. What living income only does is ensure that everyone who doesn't have a means to live, they will get a way to live. There won't be people on the streets because, hey, why are you on the street? You're required to ask for your living income as a human right. What happens is that people that work, it implies that they have money to fund their living rights, their fundamental human rights. So that's something that should be understood as well. And in terms of promoting it and in terms of presenting it to, let's say, the EC or any other organism, a government, this point of unconditionality is also creating a noise because of the reasons that we've discussed as well, the motivation to work, which we have also discussed, how it's going to be financed, which is also one of the differences that I see are existent within living income and basic income. So, Waldir, do you have any questions, comments on this?
Yes, I was listening to Joanna's talking, and I was thinking that in reality, and actually what you said as well, it's so similar. Our goals are so similar. Actually, they are the same essentially. That
Yes.
I would bet that most people who support basic income would see the living income guarantee as a worthwhile, a better system than what we have right now. Only if it could be a little bit better. For example, when we say that it goes for everyone, if we have the resources to do it, then why not? Of course, it makes sense to only give to those who need it if we have to, manage our resources. But in the end, imagine that we have, unimaginable wealth, then it wouldn't. There wouldn't be a reason to not make it unconditional. Universal for everyone, because simply it would be simpler for everyone. Just make it automatic. You don't have to implement the system, no matter how simple or complicated it is, but you wouldn't have to implement a system to test it. What my point is that we could agree that we from the basic income side, what I'm saying is we could agree that living income guarantee is a very sound idea, and it goes towards what we also believe, and the reverse I think is also true. I believe that the people who are currently involved in living income guarantee promotion can recognize that the basic income people have the same goals. They maybe are just a bit more ambitious and perhaps a bit utopian, and they might think that it's not feasible. But in terms of practical effects, what I see is that whichever of these groups can get ahead, their message spread in society is a net benefit for the other one. So we shouldn't even be thinking about two separate groups, because we are all wanting for the same thing. So, for example, right now there is this European initiative going on, and I suppose that it would make complete sense for the people in living income guaranteed movement to support it, or at least to make the word out about it, because it would help more people know about these kind of systems, because they're very similar.
Yeah, exactly.
And at the same time, I think, for example, I'm talking to someone about basic income and they are very adamantly opposed to the unconditionalities. I can also refer them to the living income guarantee proposal, and if they can be convinced of that, then it would be a net benefit, because we are all converging to the same. So I think we should really, join forces in social media in promotion of this idea. Right now, there's this specific initiative of European citizens. So it's something that we can join forces in, because if it gets the million votes that it needs, then it would be talked about in every media. So yeah, my point is precisely that we should really unite, because it's so remarkable how similar these ideas are.
Yeah, of course. I mean, our foundation is in essence what basic income proposes. What we are is in essence the economic, the political foundation to make it viable and feasible. So that's the proposal, so to speak, for basic income groups to look at it, to probably integrate it when they have the time to review it. And also because we've noticed that in terms of the funding of it, it's not yet clear, whereas we already have a very clear layout, such as the nationalization of the resources, which means, as we all know, effectively making the citizens the shareholders of these corporations that provide our basic services, electricity, water, transportation, maybe new and clean renewable sources of energy, and other ways that we are seeing that, well, if we already use these resources, these services, why shouldn't we then give that profit back to everyone that does require it in the form of a living income? And as such, we would eradicate personal income and only leave value-added tax as a way to fund the living income. So that would also mean, of course, as basic income, eradicating all the current welfare systems, the pension systems, some other benefits that are really not working at the moment. And one very important aspect is that this will be a democratic process, of course. So we absolutely agree with promoting and supporting the basic income and the initiative of the European Commission, because we do realize that if this idea gets to more people, then we have to essentially continue educating ourselves that this is a human right, that we shouldn't be thinking of a basic income or a living income as something extra that the government has to give us. No, we are entitled to this. So we are now, as humanity, as the people, the public in each nation, saying this is what we are entitled to as a human right. So this is the time to implement it, because our economic system is falling apart and we cannot continue this way. So to make it feasible, possible, viable, it is to consider the economic and the political reforms, the changes that must take place in order to make it possible. So that's what living income proposes.
Yes, I think it's also this point that you're making, it's actually plays in favor of the initiative. You say that it doesn't have a specific proposal, but in a sense that might be a good point, because right now the proposal is to create a discussion in the European Parliament
Yeah,
and
sure.
studies. So, for example, one of the conclusions that these studies could arrive would be precisely the living income guaranteed, or something very similar to it. So I assume this could also be very interesting for folks in the living income guaranteed movement to support, because we are not proposing anything specific, so it could also be that one in the end. Not that we would desire that. Personally, I would prefer to give to everyone, but I understand that living income guaranteed is a very good compromise to that ideal. So from both sides, I think it makes sense to support this proposal.
Yeah, and I think it's like actually as part of like a learning curve, because in Europe we do have many economists that should already be looking at this, but maybe they are not, and it's good to have people thinking about these solutions and come up with those solutions onto the table, so when the negotiation comes in the European Parliament, they say, okay, this is the proof that we have, and maybe they will look at the Namibia example and see that people will not be lazy by having an income, and the same way that people could perhaps deal with a different sort of welfare system that is not the current system as we know it. And I personally, I have been learning a lot from all these proposals, and there's other things going on like on Twitter and things like that that do show that this is the future. We know that this as part of the Human Rights Convention and all like the constitutions of each country, they do suggest that people should have a life in dignity. So what is missing is, okay, so where is the money? Where is the ways to have those resources? And one thing that perhaps I would like to ask Marlen, your opinion, like in Europe, one of the things that I haven't actually heard about the nationalization of those companies part of the country, but one thing that people mention is having a tax over luxury goods. And personally, I think that could work, but at the same time, and from my perspective here in UK, is that whenever there's something that will threaten the people, like the rich people, then that will be a blocking, and we don't want anything blocking a solution like this. We want everyone from rich to poor to see, look, this is what we need. A rich person, they will be much better off if there's going to be other people, like a society that are able to afford to consume and to spend money and to make the economy continue and not having these ups and downs. So I am looking at solutions that also will show that, look, we cannot have a society that is this divided, and we are able to make sure that everyone's standard of life goes up, and those that are already on the top they will deal with it and they will allow others to grow, basically. What do you have to say about it?
Yeah, the foundation in it is in essence obviously to eradicate poverty, but we don't want to cap in any way the ability of people to make money, because the money that we require to eradicate poverty is already there as a profit that only a few obtain. So by nationalizing the resources, as I've mentioned, we make the people the shareholders of these corporations, which is social dividends, and that will imply that we will ensure that people not only have access to this money to live, but we will become effectively able to also decide how these resources are managed, which will imply obviously a democratic growth in our population and our ability to decide how we use our profit, use our resources in the best possible way. And in terms of the taxation, adding taxation, that is a problem. That is really complicated. That would create a real divide. That will create the opposition of the people that are currently in power. And we are in no way wanting to go against the system. We are here as a proposal that is meant to be integrated as part of the current economy. That's why we say it cannot be unconditional, because that will create noise in the people that currently have the power, so to speak, and instead realize that the power can be given to everyone and that no one will have less or more than, but the essential to live and more than that. So we are not saying to the rich person, hey, now you have to give me half of your wealth. None of that. Everything remains as is, with the condition that we've mentioned, which is the resources are entitled to the people. So all the necessary changes then will have to come through that proposal and through that basic statement. So no personal taxes at all.
It's interesting because that in the long term we'll see, well, as if now I was listening to you and I can see that all of these that were discussed is almost as a transition to a society where we'll finally understand why the hell there's this inequality, and we're kind of like seeing, I think myself, let's say in 20 years time we're looking back and it's like, how the hell we were so separated? Why the hell were you living in inequality? Were we stupid or what? So it's just a transition that we're looking at, and that's really cool because it makes us think in the long term and put us in a situation of there's so much life out here that we're missing just because the basics, or actually the minimum that someone needs to live, it's not yet given. Exactly. And wherever the means to bring that, it's just a reality that has to happen.
Yes, and with that we will finish this hangout. We've extended our time a little bit. Guys, any last words? We only have a few moments left.
I was looking at the questions, but Waldir, go ahead while I'm looking at them.
Well, I just would like to say that what really transpired from this discussion for me is that we are all we all want the same thing. So right now I am really involved in this campaign and of the European initiative, and I think that if it goes forward, it will be beneficial for both sides. So I would urge everyone listening to this hangout to look at the proposal and support it, because it's just a proposal to make this discussion happen, not to implement it in this or that way. So I think it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, I completely agree. And if you can give us the link so that we can place it also in the information section of this video. Sure. Joana, any last words?
No, it's exactly what Waldir said. We have the petition going, and follow both groups on Twitter and stay tuned.
Okay, guys. So thanks a lot for your time, for being here, for all the discussion. It was very supportive for all of us to organize our ideas and see that the outcome is the same. The means and ways is what's varying, but in any ways, it's always what's best for all. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week for another Google Hangout on Living Income Guaranteed. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.